In terms of the business, a lot of people don't realise how long the family has been around. The business as it is today was established in 1933. However, the family's actually been in the beef industry for over 150 years. So they started with some family butcher shops in the western suburbs of Melbourne, so very local to here, in Footscray, just over the river, and really built up their business and their brand from there. Got into the processing side of things sort of from the 30s and opened the first of their existing plants in 1993 in Tongala in the northern suburbs of Victoria. We have a really strong focus on delivering high quality beef around the world, but what we do in our natural beef, which I'll touch on shortly, is it's a big part of our business, and we have a strong focus on the United States in particular for that. So in terms of our natural beef, we have our Never Ever Beef program that was established in 2012. So that was really in response to that growing consumer demand for grass-fed products, particularly as we saw out of the USA. Obviously a very different production system there, and we saw more and more consumers and customers starting to seek a grass-fed alternative. So the program was established in 2017. The business chose to actually incorporate the Certified Humane program into those standards as well. For those not familiar, that is an objective animal welfare standard that is born out of the USA. Reason for that wasn't just that customers were asking for that in particular. It has fantastic consumer recognition over there, and it really is a trusted brand. People trust the Certified Humane logo to demonstrate product that has been produced in accordance with their values, so they can be confident that the animal that product was produced from had a great life, and all those sorts of things. So business incorporated that in 2017. Initially, the supply chain was very much down in Tasmania. Our Tongala plant has been in the manufacturing game for quite some time, mostly producing, safe manufacturing meat, and it's soon to be relaunched and doing quite a significant volume of, high-quality export beef, which is really exciting. But all of our branded beef initially was out of the Tasmanian plant that we opened in 2002. 2018, the company was seeing some real strong demand, success in those brands, so opened a plant in Gippsland, and we brought that program over to the mainland. As it stands today, we've got 4,200 accredited suppliers, and we do actually supply from all states in the country, but obviously the largest volume of that coming from Victoria and Tasmania. It makes up about half of our total production as a business, so it's a pretty significant proportion of what we do. Why am I talking about the Never Ever program? Because that is the program that we're actually have been working with the supply chain to build in our sustainability framework, and really important to note that 4,000 suppliers to work with is no small feat when you're looking to do anything new or introduce new requirements. So the products that you have been consuming today was raised in accordance with our new beef sustainability standards and off our farm Westmore, which I'll show you where that is shortly. But what this standard is, it's an optional on-farm standard that will be made available to our Never Ever Beef suppliers. We are growing it slowly. We've recently come out of a pilot phase of this last year and have commenced production and are supplying product from this to customers in the US in particular since March this year. So very, very new, and we will be looking to make that available across our beef supply chain, our Never Ever Beef supply chain. It's got a really strong alignment with industry frameworks and goals, including the ABSF and CN30, and in a second we'll take a look at what that development process to build out those standards and all the consultation actually looks like. But was really, really important to the business at the time that this work was started, that everything that was done aligned with industry standards and goals. We didn't want to be sending a different message to our producers, around what was important or what they should be focusing on to broadly what our industry had set. There's so much power in working together, and, when a consumer, they may fall in love with a brand, but around the world, we want people to have a lot of confidence in, Australian beef. And if we pool our resources and work together on this, we can achieve so much more. So, we really wanted to make sure that we did this in a way that our producers could see how they were actually contributing to industry goals, be able to benchmark themselves and tap into industry tools and resources to support them on that journey. The way we've set the standard up, it's really all about that continuous improvement. So we have 3 tiers of achievement. The first tier is really about strengthening and protecting that supply chain that we've built and giving customers confidence that I guess we have the answers to their questions. If they come to us and say, hey, does your supply chain do this or this? Historically, we've only been able to respond with, well, this is the industry guideline, or most farmers probably do this. This gives us an ability to actually set a bar and measure against that to give them the confidence in what actually is happening on our farms. Through to Tier 2, that's really about measurement and planning. So, our farmers, for example, in the carbon space, completing their carbon account, putting together an action plan around how they're going to be reducing that carbon footprint, and then demonstrating that they're actually taking those steps to make those improvements. And then Tier 3 is where we come into that best practice and providing that goalpost. So aligning really well with where the framework's heading, but giving them something to aim for so that when they're doing that measurement, that planning, they know where they're heading. I guess the whole reason for doing this was that we wanted to be able to deliver beef around the world with really robust environmental credentials, but really importantly backed by science. So we wanted to make sure whatever we gave our customers was heavily grounded in science so that we could be confident it would stand the test of time, it would have a positive impact on our people, on our planet, on our animals. And as I said, we are really proud of the supply chain we've built and the way we produce beef, and this gives us a really good place to have that conversation and share the awesome work that we're doing in our supply chain, the great stuff that's happening on farm, making sure those stories that we're sharing through to our customers are coming from the voice of our farmers who are talking about what they do and why, and seeing that passion come through. So I spoke to the fact there was a very extensive consultation development process, so extensive it's impossible to get it on a slide that actually looks presentable. But I guess in terms of building the standards, this work commenced back in 2019 before I actually joined the business. And they started with that beef sustainability framework as their, guiding light. They took that to a group of farmers in Tasmania, who they called the, Cape Grim Sustainability Framework Reference Group. And that was done in partnership with MLA through an NDC project. And they basically said to them, how do we turn this into a set of on-farm standards that we can measure how we're performing and communicate that to customers? So took all of the producer feedback from that, and that actually formulated the draft standards that we had pulled together at the start of 2021. Around that sort of same time, our Gippsland supply chain was involved in the McDonald's BSAT pilot as well, so had a cohort of producers go through that. So we're really able to learn from these different settings and different ways of approaching how to implement this stuff on farm, and take these different approaches and bring them together to form quite a robust set of standards. As I said, through this process, we were building up our Gippsland supply chain, so it was really, really important when it actually came to the fact that we'd pulled some standards together, that we took this to a broader range of producers and really made sure that it applied across geographies. So, we went through a pilot phase, which I'll show you in a second what that involved, but really made sure that we tested it across different environments, different business types, before we brought together the standards as they are today, which is what we've actually put to customers. So there was a lot of customer consultation. One of the first jobs I had when I joined the business was to call all of our major customers and say, all right, what do you want to see when we talk sustainability? What is it that you want to know? And how can we demonstrate that to you? Are there specific things you want to see? So we actually had them send all that through, and we did our real best to actually deliver on all those things, but that was really a two-way conversation. We took everything our customers wanted and actually went back to our producer reference groups, and we moulded that together, and really, where maybe we hadn't delivered something word for word what a customer wanted, we went back and sort of talked to, well, this is actually what happens in our environment and our supply chain, this is how our farmers are achieving this. So it was very much a two-way conversation. I mentioned that, having a scientifically robust set of standards was also incredibly important. No matter what we put on a label, it was really, really important that these standards do positive things on farm. They support us having a sustainable business, sustainable supply chain and industry. So having that ongoing scientific engagement and review right through the process was really important. The business worked alongside Pinion Advisory and their team based down in Tasmania from the get-go, who helped provide that consultation, tapped into their team. And then once we had the first draft set of standards, early 2021, we sat down with Steve Wiedemann and the team at Integrity Ag to go through that and get their feedback and implement that back into the standards as well with their producer group. So in terms of what's actually in the standards, I could be here for a long time if I went through it in too much detail, but they are available online and you're able to access them. Welfare, as I mentioned, we do already have the Certified Humane, so most of the things our industry is really wanting to achieve in that space, things like pain relief, a really proactive health management, those sorts of things were already incorporated under that Certified Humane Standard. Where the gap was for us was really around that selection for polled genetics, so that's been introduced, but also really using processor feedback to guide and support addressing proactively health issues and getting those performance improvements out of that as well. Environmental stewardship, absolutely the most comprehensive area, the area we get the most question, the area that was the most difficult to apply uniformly across different farms. So, themes of ground cover, grazing management, soil health, waterways, so on and so forth, carbon management being a big one in there as well. Economic resilience was an interesting one. The initial producer group, if you go and like reading MLA PIP reports, they actually didn't want to include it. Reason being not because they don't value economic resilience, 100% they do. They were worried that that meant that they'd be sharing P&Ls and sensitive financial information. So we actually learnt a lot from how the McDonald's BSAP pilot had approached that. This is actually about having the tools and using your data and setting in place measures so that you can, actually, identify how you're performing now and benchmark yourself and have that ability to improve. So it was more about the tools and the implementation of that, which when we came back with that, the group was really comfortable with. People in the community, definitely the space that I think most people were least familiar with in terms of any sort of structure, particularly around things like workplace health and safety. We're really fortunate, there are some great resources out there from the state government bodies. Safe Farming Tas, for example, has been out to our Westmore farm and worked with them and really helped them work through that process of getting things like risk assessments done, induction checklists in place and getting quite a holistic workplace health and safety culture embedded in these farms, and definitely something that everyone understood this is really, really important and we want to improve upon. I just didn't quite know where to start. So, what was in it for our customers? As I said, we had a lot of conversations with them up front. What they were seeking was really being able to maintain, consumer confidence in existing brands, but also, if anything else came to market, they wanted to make sure that they could have longevity in those products and have real confidence that if they're going out making a claim that, hey, this beef is good for the planet, that there was a really robust framework around that. They wanted support in telling the story, access to things for socials, labelling, consumer FAQs. We do answer a lot of them in-house from our customers, and through our brand pages we get a lot of questions. So, we support our customers in answering those and sharing what we actually do on farm. Premiums from their consumers that really, tie to claims that resonate with them. So I'll show you in a second sort of what we've done in that space. Investor confidence, adherence to policy came up in some conversations, and again I just mentioned that ability to verify, so that data, record keeping, audits to verify anything that we were doing was super important. Our producers, why did they come on board? They had a whole lot of mixed reasons, but directly from their mouths, they saw this as really important to the future of the beef industry and their businesses. They really saw this as supporting education for themselves, producers, but also through to consumer, being able to share that story and really talk to what they are doing and why. Industry leadership was a theme that came up quite a bit. Support around that continual improvement. They wanted to align with customer requirements, promote that story, as I said, and they wanted access to new markets and brands. So, we had this as an opt-in pilot. We put a call out to quite a number of our existing never ever beef producers, but we also had people come up to us at other events and producer days and say, hey, I may not be supplying you, but I'm interested in this space and I hear you're about to do something. So we had some brand new suppliers jump on board for the pilot. So it was really exciting to learn from all those people and what we're actually doing in their businesses. So in terms of that pilot that I said we ran last year, again, in partnership with MLA, was super, super important to us in this space, that what we learn from this we can share with industry and we can focus and guide that development of resources, tools. The carbon space, pretty early on, we recognised in this pilot that was just fraught with confusion for a lot of our producers. They had heard about this CN30 target, they just had no idea where to start, they didn't know where they were at. The spreadsheets and things can be quite overwhelming. So, the development of e-learning modules and those sorts of things were really, really valuable learnings that came out of that. But we had 21 producers engaged in that pilot from across southern Australia, and you can see on the map there where they were located. It was really to make sure that we got some feedback on whether the standards that we'd produced through what we thought was a fairly extensive consultation process was actually practical to implement, had value on farm. We really challenged ourselves that every indicator in the standard delivered value on farm outside of any potential, market opportunity or price premium. And that, it was actually quite effective, essentially. So we thought we had it in the pilot. We went, yep, this is pretty good. Let's just test it across some different geographies. We made a lot of changes after the pilot. We learned a lot because things aren't the same, or the way things are interpreted just wasn't always consistent from farm to farm. So, it was an amazing learning exercise to actually go in and say, all right, well, how do we actually physically do this rather than just talking about what could be done? A big part of what we try and do with our farmers with anything is really provide support, guidance, templates, tools around record keeping, data capture, those sorts of things. We've got farmers who want to have, the best new system available and do everything digitally or have it automated. We've got people who want to use a paper template, and that's fine too, but providing options and guidance for both. So we really use this pilot as to help inform what we did actually need to do in that space and make sure that what we were developing was really fit for purpose for those producers. And then identify training opportunities. Again, really, really important. If there were gaps, areas people didn't understand, we knew immediately where to, pull some resources and put some focus to support people improving. So I mentioned that sort of meeting consumers where they're at and growing that confidence through on-pack claims. So one thing that we actually were able to deliver through this is a certified regenerative product to our customers in the USA. When we had the conversation with our customers around what do you actually want, what matters to you, a lot of them were starting to say, we want a regenerative product. And so we sat down with them and said, well, what does that mean to you? They all sent their requirements back. We had quite extensive conversations. Largely their requirements were aligned really closely with the 5 principles of soil health, carbon underground definition, but really what they were looking for was something that spoke to a consumer who was looking for beef that was good for the planet, beef they didn't need to feel guilty about, and had these themes of soil health, enhancing natural landscapes, supporting waterways, improving climate resilience, promoting biodiversity, and increasing carbon storage. These were all things that, through the development of our standards and that alignment that we'd created with the sustainability framework covering all those themes, we're actually setting ourselves up to deliver on really nicely. So we went back and forth quite a bit between our producer group and our customers to really build that out and do it in a way that our customers were like, yes, I'm really confident, nobody's going to tell me I'm greenwashing. That was definitely a concern from the customers, but that the producers were really proud that that actually did represent really positive environmental management on farm, and that they could hand on heart speak to that. And tying in again really nicely with these other themes, depending on who you asked, people want to see this in alignment with welfare requirements and claims. People and community is often a big theme around the regenerative space. It's about that resilience and those sorts of things. So it actually all tied in really nicely, having a broader approach there. That claim has been approved for both AusMeat and USDA label use approval, and any farms that meet our Tier 2 or 3 under our standard are eligible to supply that program and access financial premiums. So this is the part where I would have handed over to Aidan, so I'm going to apologise if I butcher his farm, not literally, but this is the beautiful Westmore in northwest Tasmania. It's located right up on the northwest point, as you can see there, so beautiful views over, the Cape Grim area. Stunning place to farm. Aidan will tell you it requires a different kind of person in this time of year when you've got your back to the wind and sideways rain coming at you, which I think is what he was faced with last night and this morning. But essentially it's been a really pivotal part for our business in producing, high quality grass-fed beef and helping to service those plants with consistent supply. Why are they focused on sustainability? First and foremost, as I said, we're getting these cattle off, they're coming into our brands. It matters to our consumers, it matters to our customers. We love being able to take our customers out to see the farm at Westmore and show them what we're doing there. So it really does need to be the first responder, first to lead in this space and really speak, acts as an example of what we're trying to achieve. But it really matters to us, and I say us, this is something that Aidan, our farm manager, is really passionate about. The things that he's learning and implementing on Westmore, he's going home and he's doing on his family farm. He genuinely wants to farm in a way that will leave that land in a better place. Makes him, really proud of what he does, and also the staff there as well. They've had a really long-term focus around data at Westmore. Aidan is young and enthusiastic and very, very data-driven. So he's always looking at that data around how can he improve his animal health, his water quality, his soil health. The way that our Westmore business is set up, it's a separate business unit, so having good performance is super important there, and lowering those input costs, and that all fed in really, really nicely with the outcomes of a lot of the initiatives that he was able to do through this. And as I said, we do try and really make sure we put our money where our mouth is and that we test and implement things. So a lot of different things that maybe, customers are asking about, or different practices that, we're still learning more and more about as the science evolves in this space. Aidan's putting to test on his farm. He's carving out pilot paddocks here and there, and actually running trials that we can learn from as well, which is really exciting. So in terms of some specific things, so Aidan was actually he was previously a cattle buyer for Greenham, and then moved over to manage our Westmore farm. So he actually was part of the reference group developing the initial standards in his role as a cattle buyer. And then when he started managing the Westmore farm, we piloted the standards on that farm as well. So he was involved not only as a team member, but also as one of our producers. And I guess for his perspective, it really helped him to focus his efforts and access resources to, drive those improvements. On the recommendation of the, project team, he engaged Safe Farming Tasmania and has done quite a bit around his workplace health and safety practices. He's been spending a lot of time increasing the breadth of testing that he's doing and really looking at optimising what he's using on the soil, making sure it's, right time, right place, yes, but also really fit for purpose, and looking at where there's opportunities to tap into more and more nutrients. He shifted over to, direct drilling, but is doing a lot of trials around multi-species pastures and things to not only, support soil, but really looking at plugging those feed gaps as well, so that we've got that resilience and that ongoing supply of animals through that property. A couple of areas he's focusing on. There's a little photo there of one of the paddocks at Westmore. We've got some areas of natural vegetation, native vegetation, that are in the middle of paddocks, or smaller areas. The large ones, they've been spending a lot of time and effort fencing off. His next project is really to do that in some of the smaller areas, so we can maintain those shelter belts, tree cover, but in that wet area, when the cattle are in under the trees, it can do a bit of damage. So he's putting a lot of time and energy into that. But also really, again, utilising that data to look at, what cattle are coming in. As we only breed a pretty small number of cattle on Westmore, it is largely backgrounding and finishing. So he's really looking at, what cattle can we actually utilise to improve our footprint and also get a really high-quality brand outcome at the other end. So, in saying that, so as I said, this product that you have eaten today was off our Westmore farm, produced under these standards, I think produced in about the second or third week of production of this. So I was sitting here with bated breath, hoping the steak was very good, and the chef did a fantastic job, so I was really, really overwhelmed. But yeah, essentially we're really, really excited and proud to bring this to you, and I hope you enjoyed it. Happy to take any questions.